With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories: St. Kitts and Nevis, a small nation on the front line of a global crisis. Police investigating Ramsbury robbery. Jakeem Walters charged with building breaking. St. Kitts and Nevis beyond passports, a journey of legacy and contribution. Guyana Vice President complains about delays in government. St. Lucia's UWP candidate calls for transformative evidence-based leadership. Internationally, children in Gaza like zombies because of severe malnutrition, U.S. doctor says. Now, the details. St. Kitts and Nevis remains on the front lines of climate change alongside many other small island developing states, SIDS, who stay keenly aware that it is a present-day emergency. During the recent regular meeting of the Organization of American States, OAS, Augustine Skerritt, Minister Consular and alternate representative to Her Excellency Jacinth Henry Martin, Ambassador and permanent representative to the OAS, drew focus on the Federation's fight for climate justice, adaptability, and sustainability. The OAS actively supports member states in managing natural disaster risks and promotes regional cooperation and capacity building for climate change adaptation. Skerritt's address highlighted the severe and immediate impacts of climate change on SIDS, countries particularly vulnerable due to their remote economies, reliance on external markets, and exposure to natural disasters. SIDS, including St. Kitts and Nevis, face rising sea levels, intensifying storms, and coral reef degradation. Despite contributing less than 1% of global greenhouse gas emissions, SIDS bear a disproportionate burden, with annual climate adaptation costs estimated between US $22 billion and US $26 billion.
My delegation co-sponsored this important declaration advanced by Antigua and Barbuda, not just as a vulnerable small island developing state, but as a voice from the front line of a global crisis highlighted by the ICJ opinion. From the Twin Island state of St. Kitts and Nevis, we watch the tides rise, the storms intensify, and the coral reefs fade. We are a small nation, yes, but our stakes in this fight against climate change is immeasurably large. In response, we are not just standing still. In 2022, our government launched the Sustainable Island State Agenda, anchored on seven key pillars, including energy transition, water security, and sustainable industries. Under this framework, we have invested in solar infrastructure, LED street lighting, smart electricity meters, wind turbines, and we are advancing geothermal development. We have banned single-use plastics, enacted legislation to protect coral, implemented climate action plans in tourism. For us, climate change is not a future problem. It is a present-day emergency. It threatens our food security, our freshwater supply, our infrastructure, and our very way of life.
The Sustainable Island State Agenda, launched in 2022, provides a comprehensive roadmap for St. Kitts and Nevis's transformation, built on 7 foundational pillars: energy transition, water security, food security, sustainable industries, sustainable settlements, circular economy, and health and social protection. Under this agenda, the Federation has made significant investments in renewable energy and water infrastructure, which include the Bastia desalination plant, geothermal development on Nevis, and solar infrastructure.
In response, St. Kitts and Nevis has completed over 70% of a $2 million gallon per day desalination plant, which is set to be operational before the end of this year, 2025. This desalination plant is expected to enhance water security and provide sustainable water supply to the residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. Additionally, the building of a geothermal facility on Nevis is a main priority for our federal government. The plant is envisioned to provide baseload renewable energy for both islands, contributing significantly to energy independence.
Skerritt concluded by affirming the Federation's readiness to collaborate with the OAS to forge a more equitable and sustainable future.
Still, our national carbon print is negligible. Yet, we bear the disproportionate burden of this global crisis. This is not just environmental. It is a question of climate justice, because the very existence of small island developing states like ours is on the line. Chair, we urge the global community, especially major emitters, to act with urgency, provide the promised climate financing, support technological transfer, strengthen regional cooperation through mechanisms like the OAS, because the survival of countries like St. Kitts and Nevis is tied to the collective future of our hemisphere. Let us move beyond pledges to policies, from aspiration to action. The time is now, Chair.
The Federation's efforts align with the regional push for climate justice, emphasizing the past harms, including disproportionate burdens on SIDS, necessitate financial compensation and support. St. Kitts and Nevis has actively engaged in developing national climate change adaptation strategies and plans to reduce vulnerability and mitigate impacts across various sectors. The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force is investigating a robbery that occurred in Ramsbury, Nevis on August 5, 2025 between 2:30 a.m. and 5 a.m. Doshand Laljit, a 44-year-old resident of Ramsbury, reported that upon arriving home from a social event, he was accosted at knife point in his yard by an unknown individual wearing a dark hoodie and black pants. Laljit stated that the assailant demanded he hand over his valuables. He complied and the robber made off with his wallet, which contained cash, his identification cards, and other personal effects, before fleeing the scene on foot. An investigation has been launched into the incident. Anyone with information about the crime is urged to contact the Charlestown Police Station or via the Crime Stoppers hotline at 707. Jackie Walters has been charged with 2 counts of building breaking committed on July 14th and 29th, 2025. The charges were laid on August 2nd, 2025 at the Bastia Police Station. More on this as information becomes available. The narrative surrounding economic citizenship either focuses on risk to security for larger countries, concerns about criminal financing, or on the tangible benefits of global mobility and an improved lifestyle. However, for individuals like George Nwangu, an economic citizen from Nigeria, the essence of St. Kitts and Nevis citizenship transcends these immediate advantages or concerns, delving into the profound realms of legacy, community contribution, and shared purpose. In an interview on the St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment Unit's YouTube channel, he speaks about his 5-year journey as a Kittitian, offering a compelling perspective on the actual value of the Citizenship by Investment CBI program.
It's been an amazing journey. So there's several benefits to being a citizen. Of course, being able to travel around the world, being able to proudly be a Kittitian is a privilege.
However, Nwangu quickly shifts the focus from transactional gains to the deeper meaning of citizenship.
But I know that the most important thing about being a citizen is being able to contribute to your new country. The most important aspect of the CBI program, I think, is having that shared heritage, the people, and being so. Most times, people look at the CBI program like as bringing in money. It is the value that citizens can bring to this country that really matters. It's the value.
He encourages fellow economic citizens and investors to adopt a similar mindset.
Look at the economy. Where can I contribute? How can I contribute? How can I make, what legacy do I want to leave here? And that's really important.
This call for action highlights the entrepreneurial opportunities available in St. Kitts and Nevis. Nwangu concludes by emphasizing the dual appeal of the Twin Island nation.
This is a really nice place. The CBI program has a lot of value, it has a lot of quality, and just coming here alone, there are opportunities, a lot of opportunities for an entrepreneur like myself. I feel that there's so many things to do to add value. The key is adding value, and there's so many things to do for returns. So this is a really nice place to not just relax, but to do business. And I encourage everyone to look at it deeply. It's very enriching in so many ways.
Hussein Ghanem, a businessman and economic citizen Originally from the Gambia, West Africa, shares how St. Kitts and Nevis has become his second home for the last 2 years and how it's changed his life.
So, I mean, to be very honest, it's been life-changing. I mean, I'm a businessman, and one of the main things that drew me to getting this citizenship was, of course, freedom in mobility, to be able to travel. So the passport has made my life a lot easier in that I don't have to spend weeks and months in advance to plan my travel, to apply for visas. It's actually opened up the world to me. It's made doing business a lot easier for me. And also it's actually given me a second option. So, instead of just having all my eggs in one basket, I can safely say that now I have roots here in St. Kitts. And it's one of the things that has been appealing to people like us. We want to come and see this second citizenship we hold. What roots can we plant here? And so it's been an absolutely life-changing thing. And we hope to have a long-lasting relationship with our new country.
Ghanem shared how drawing parallels helped with settling into the Federation.
To be honest, I thought it was going to be maybe a culture shock or learning curve. But after coming here, I've been able to draw parallels between, again, the country where I'm from. Gambia is a small ex-British colony, very similar to St. Kitts and Nevis. But then again, I've seen big similarities in the hospitality of people, the openness to sharing, the welcoming attitude of the people here. It really mirrors an island state because everyone is always happy, everyone is smiling. The food has been absolutely phenomenal. And as I said, the people are just charming and welcoming people. And why wouldn't someone want to be a part of this?
The words of both men encapsulate the vision behind the CBI program, to not only offer a secure pathway to citizenship, but also to foster a community of engaged global citizens who are invested in the long-term prosperity and cultural richness of the Federation. In regional news, Guyana Vice President complains about delays in government. News source Guyana reports.
Vice President Barra Jagdeo has once again expressed his displeasure over the work being done by a number of local contractors, who he complained to continue to fail to deliver government projects on time. Questioned about reports of corruption in the government procurement system and complaints of a lack of fairness in the awarding of contracts, Mr. Jagdeo said while the government is putting relevant systems in place, it still has issues with many local contractors who are given a chance but fail to deliver.
In their output, we have major problems with delivery. Not so much the procurement, but delivery. People are slow to complete a lot of the projects that we have awarded. In housing, on infrastructure, young professional homes, and also the core homes. You know how many young professionals have come to me and said, the contractors are delayed a year, they're waiting, they're paying their mortgages, and their people are waiting.
The government has been rolling out a number of projects in communities across the country and has been boasting about the increase in the number of contractors executing government work. But concerns have been raised about the standard of work being done, with many persons complaining about substandard road work, especially in many areas. Both Mr. Jagdeo and the Works Minister Juan Edgel have acknowledged the problem and have threatened to blacklist errant contractors. But there appears to have been no move in that direction.
So we have a problem with many people, local contractors. Some are doing an excellent job and many are not fulfilling their promises or doing substandard work. We have to fix that, apart from the procurement, to make sure that it is done well.
Vice President Jagdeo said there must be a balance in locals being given the opportunity to take on contracts and not just those foreign companies. According to him, the issue is also about capacity and the need for the procurement system to be strengthened.
St. Lucia's UWP candidate calls for transformative evidence-based leadership. DBS St. Lucia has the details.
Titus Preville emphasized his transition from public servant to politician, citing the need for policymakers to understand the systems they aim to lead.
The art of governing is not how many ministers you have, it is how the minister is able to bring a team of technical experts together, administrative persons together, with a shared vision for implementation.
He criticized the government's recent zero rating of 70 VAT items, saying it came too late in their term.
The universe of tariff items is about over 5,000. Over 5,000. And the government has chosen 70 of the 5,000. How many years after it's come into office? Something it could have done in its first 6 months, first year, second year, third year, anywhere there, it could have done it. It did nothing. And in its going into its fifth year, it decides, it is possible to take 70 tariff lines, make them zero, remove the import, remove the service charge on them, and say to the people, I've done a great job.
According to Previll, it's 5 to 12 on the election clock, and the action by the government is not an indicator, in his view, that the administration really cares about putting the people's interest first. Highlighting the demographics of his Babonneau constituency, Previll called for urgent action to engage young people and strengthen local agriculture and entrepreneurship.
In Babonneau, we have a age profile where most of the people are between the ages of 10 and 49. And of that, most people are between 10 and 29. So if you are a representative in Babonneau, you must have a comprehensive program for young people. So you couldn't be a representative, and 4 years in, the playing fields have not been dealt with.
He stressed that effective representation requires a deep understanding of community dynamics and infrastructure needs. Condemning the growing hostility in local politics, Previll made an emotional appeal for a return to respectful engagement. He urged the political leaders to lead by example, warning that hate-driven politics will only poison the next generation.
We now bring you these international reports.
Well, where does this plan leave humanitarian efforts on the ground? It is another immediate crisis. The aid agency MSF was on the programme warning that the apocalyptic situation on the ground now would get immeasurably worse if this plan were to go ahead. Let's speak now to an American doctor, Mark Brunner, who recently returned from the Nasser hospital in Gaza. And Mark, thank you so much for being here with us on BBC News. I wonder if you could just start by describing the levels of starvation you saw all around you when you were there just a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. The level of starvation is just catastrophic. It's clear to anyone observing the people. Even President Trump can see from the photos, people are absolutely skeletal. Their clothes just hang off their frame. People are delirious. They are stumbling. They're passing out. And it is pervasive and systemic everywhere you look. And the global acute malnutrition scores that have been used are severe underestimates. The severe acute malnutrition level for children age less than 5, for example, the people that are the most at risk, is estimated to be approximately 5%. But that estimate is probably, so far under, it's probably more like 10. And these children are at a direct life threat.
Well,
let
me ask you about that, because I quoted you a couple of times in interviews last week after I read some of your accounts, and you described the impacts of extreme malnutrition, extended starvation, and what that does to the human body, the gut. I wonder if you would just describe that for people watching you speak now.
Sure. These children already have experienced multi-trauma. And what is even worse is that it is so pervasive in how it affects the physiology that they start to lose emotional contact even with their families. So they become delirious. They have hallucinations. They are unable to sleep. They get zero REM. They essentially become almost like zombies. They stop playing, they stop talking, they stop looking for love, they lose contact completely with their family. And it's really an incredible insult to injury. But, it starts with the brain and starts to kind of goes down. But in the most severe forms, especially in children that are less than 6 months of age, you start to get an obliteration of the immune system because people don't really start to develop a fully robust immune system until approximately 6 months of age. And so what happens is that they start getting infections of every type that you can imagine, skin infections, because everybody has cuts and scrapes. The body starts having severe protein and carbohydrate malnutrition and loss, where there's not enough protein circulating in the blood to keep the water in the bloodstream. So the water goes to area of least resistance, which is the gut. So the gut becomes very distended. And then what happens there is that the gut lining starts to auto-digest. And then the bacteria, the E. coli that are in the gut, start to translocate or move across the barrier from inside the gut into the bloodstream. And then you have what's called gram-negative sepsis, which is a systemic infection that is pretty much 100% lethal.
It is, it is horrific to hear you describe all of that. When you get to a tipping point like that, is there any way back from that?
Unfortunately, there's really not. And that's the problem. There are literally thousands of children that have crossed the tipping point where we won't know the total mortality and morbidity numbers for months. But even with refeeding in an ICU environment where you can monitor blood electrolyte levels several times a day under extremely controlled conditions, there's still very high lethality. And so, the issue is that the underestimation, and a really terrible part of this story is that, the numbers that we have are from people who are still able to get up and walk and move around. There are so many people that are so destroyed that they're just lying in their tents.
Yes.
So, they're completely isolated and we have no idea about them. And so these numbers are just going to climb so high.
A really brief thought, if you would, as a final thought, because I know you as doctors try to get baby formula into Gaza. Just briefly, tell me what happened there. Well,
when we were at Nasser, we occasionally would need to go over to the children's hospital adjacent to Nasser. And while we were there, it was overwhelming. There were 100 children that were at high risk of imminent death from starvation that needed specialized formula. And they are living day to day, hour by hour, waiting for small amounts of food to come in. People that basically smuggle specialized formula in because the Israeli Defense Force has, explicitly and intentionally blocked baby formula. The crew that came in right behind us, we asked them to bring in formula. The IDF stopped them at the border and took all of the formula out of their bags. But there are thousands of children in very close proximity to the hospital because the hospital itself is overwhelmed, and these children are at risk of death. And the families just essentially hunker down in buildings, blown up buildings around the hospital to come in under emergent conditions because there's no room in the hospital. And this is a red zone. So they're living in a red zone in close proximity to the hospital so they can jump in quickly at the last second. But generally, there's nothing that can be done.
Moaz Mukhaima says he queues for 2 hours, 2 or 3 times a day, to collect water for his extended family of 20 displaced in central Gaza. He is among many Gazans already weakened by hunger who trek across a ruined landscape each day, hauling all their drinking and washing water, and what they can drag is still far below the levels needed to keep people healthy.
It is a big crisis, whether it is fresh, clean water or salty water, especially in the summer when most of our people's needs are water. and we suffer from it greatly, every day. God help us.
While a famine scenario is unfolding in the enclave, aid groups say the water crisis is just as severe. Some water comes from small desalination units, but most is drawn from wells, brackish and polluted by sewage and chemicals that have seeped through the rubble. Diseases like diarrhea and hepatitis are spreading. Moaz's mother, rations the water in their tent. The children keep coming and going, and it is hot. They keep wanting to drink, she says. Who knows if tomorrow we will be able to fill up again. The family's struggle for water is replicated across the tiny crowded territory. Nearly everybody is living in temporary shelters without sewage or hygiene facilities and not enough water to drink, cook and wash. Israel stopped all water and electricity supply to Gaza early in the war. Some supply has resumed, though the pipeline network in the territory has been badly damaged. Oxfam's Bushra Khalidi said the average water consumption in Gaza is now 3 to 5 litres a day.
The minimum that a normal person like you and I should use in average a day is 100 liters. That is the minimum standard. The minimum emergency standard is 15 liters a day. So we are 3 to 5 times less than the minimum emergency standard set by the WHO.
A new water pipeline funded by the United Arab Emirates is planned to serve 600,000 people in southern Gaza from a desalination plant in Egypt, but it could take several more weeks to be connected. Aid agencies, meanwhile, say much more is needed. A spokesperson for UNICEF said the long-term deprivations were becoming deadly and that starvation and dehydration are, quote, no longer side effects of this conflict. They are very much frontline effects.
I'm at what is the staging post for an enormous emergency response to wildfire in southwest France, and the warning is that it has been contained, which is not to say the flames are out. There is still much work to be done, they say, but it has been brought under control.
An area of 16,000 hectares with a perimeter of 95 kilometers is now contained. There is no further fire spread outside this area, but there are still risks of flare-ups and hotspots within the perimeter.
They'll keep watch, of course, across the fire's various fronts in case of flare-ups. The wind is still changeable. It's extremely hot and expected to get hotter with a new heat wave going into the weekend. Temperatures expected to reach around 40 degrees Celsius. So this parched, now largely blackened landscape remains extremely vulnerable, and few here, including the French government, would deny the underlying cause. Increasingly hot, dry summers, not just here but across southern Europe. That means climate change and drought.
We were already on high alert when this fire started. The humidity was below 30%, around 23. The temperature was well above 30 degrees and the winds were very strong.
Now people who have evacuated their homes and villages can return, in some cases like this one, finding little left. But a damage assessment can already begin to be told in the numbers. 16,000 hectares torn through by this wildfire in under 72 hours. That's an area the size of the city of Paris. 13 people injured, 1 dead. France's worst wildfire in 75 years. Jonah Hull, Al Jazeera, in southwest France.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: St. Kitts and Nevis, a small nation on the front line of a global crisis. Police investigating Ramsbury robbery. Jakeem Walters charged with building breaking. St. Kitts and Nevis beyond passports, a journey of legacy and contribution. Guyana Vice President complains about delays in government. St. Lucia's UWP candidate calls for transformative evidence-based leadership. Internationally, children in Gaza like zombies because of severe malnutrition, U.S. doctor says. Thank you for listening.